Minnesota is blessed with miles and miles of trails, which are a dream for cyclists, skaters, cross-country skiers, and walkers. Many of the trails are along former railroad beds, offering secluded and scenic views. Many are around urban lakes and parks that allow access to nature to city dwellers. Many are part of the Minnesota State Trail System, while others are regional or metropolitan. All of them are part of what makes Minnesota special, and they add significantly to Minnesota's quality of life and to the health of our communities. Today we're going to look in depth at one of these trails, the Canon Valley Trail, as an example of how our trails benefit our communities, our state, and our health.
Welcome to A Public Health Journal, a program that explores public health issues facing our society today and tomorrow. The host of the show is Dr. Ed Ellinger, Commissioner of Health for the state of Minnesota. A Public Health Journal is sponsored by the Minnesota Department of Health and the Hennepin County Human Services and Public Health Department, all working together towards the goal of healthy people living in healthy communities.
Welcome to A Public Health Journal. Today we're going to look at the impact and benefits of hiking, biking, and skating trails in Minnesota. In particular, we'll be looking at the Canon Valley Trail as an example of how a trail can transform a community and add to its overall health and well-being. Joining me in this discussion is Scott Roepke, Executive Director of the Canon Valley Trail, and Keith French, an avid user of the 20-mile trail that runs between Cannon Falls and Red Wing. Well, good morning, both of you. Thank you for being with us.
Good morning.
Good morning. And it's nice to be here in Red Wing at the Historical Society building here in Goodhue County, because this is kind of a community asset. The trail, Canon Valley Trail, is a community asset. Do you see it as a community asset?
Oh yeah, definitely. The connection between Cannon Falls, Welch, and Red Wing is a 20-mile gap, but it brings those communities together as far as all three units of government are involved, Cannon Falls, Red Wing, and Goodhue County. So yes, it does pull the communities together.
All right, so you're the executive director, but Keith, you're a user of this. Do you see it as a community asset?
Absolutely. This is an asset for our community and for all the members of our community that use the trail daily or weekly or even monthly. Mm-hmm. You know, we use it in my family as for biking. My daughters use it for rollerblading. My wife will go cross-country skiing on it in the winter. Mm-hmm. And so it's something we use year-round, and it's a great asset for us.
Well, I want to talk specifically about the Canon Valley Trail, but first I want to start out by talking about why all of a sudden have trails become so vital in our community. I mean, when I was growing up, people rode bikes, but they walked a little bit, but all of a sudden it just boomed nationally. What's behind all of the activity in biking and skiing and cycling and skating?
I think part of it is the number of bike trails has increased. So the number of miles have increased. The trails range from southern Minnesota all the way up to northern Minnesota. So it's kind of like maybe the state park system. The state parks started with a small number and it just grew and grew. So I think with the number of different bike trails, it gives people different opportunities to see different parts of the state. And so just the variety of what they can see probably increases the number of users a little bit.
So it sounds like it's a chicken egg kind of thing. As you build trails, more people will come, but as more people bike, you need more trails.
Yes, exactly. And I think people are starting to realize that, well, I shouldn't say starting to realize, but there are a lot of health benefits to being on the bike. There's lots of people that for the first time will come out and start using the trail, and you'll stop and ask them, where are you from? What do why are you here? And a lot of them are saying for health reasons. Mm-hmm. So,
Keith, you're an avid user, and you use the trail. How often do you use the trail, Canon Valley Trail?
I probably use the trail 4 to 5 times a week.
Okay.
And
so what prompted you to get into biking and use of the trail?
Well, for me, biking was, of course, when I was a teenager, it was transportation. And actually my story is, I was telling Scott this, is that one day I was going into the fridge, this was about 12 years ago, and I had to squat down to get something. And my knees sounded like, I thought cellophane or something, and I was like, what's happening to my knees, you know? So and we had this great resource in town, and I thought, I'm gonna start using the bike trail. And what happened is the more I went out on the bike trail, you know, the stronger my legs got, the farther I could go. And also just the more things I could see on the trail. You know, I would see nature, I would see an eagle or a snake or a turtle, and it made it very fun and interesting, and it was very good for my overall health too.
So did it also get other people engaged in the trail? I mean, your family, you said that your family uses it, but also friends and neighbors?
Yep, exactly. You know, I started riding it, and then, you know, a little while later, I kept coming home and telling my wife, you know, I saw an eagle today, and I had such a great ride today, and pretty soon we got her a bike, and she was riding, and you know, and then, you know, I would ride with friends. I started to discover a whole new group of people that ride on a regular basis, and so we'll call each other up and say, hey, what are you doing Saturday morning? You want to get up and go do a ride? And so it's kind of building community within our community. We're meeting lots of new people based around bicycle.
Now I know in more urban areas like Portland and Minneapolis and St. Paul, where really the focus is on getting more people to bike, part of it is for health, but also part of it is for environmental protection. Is that the same kind of issues here in a non-metropolitan community, the same pressures, or is it more just for the community building and for the health aspects?
Well, at first I thought that the trail was just kind of a recreational getaway. And I was actually telling Keith earlier that we had to close the trail at one point to do some maintenance, and we had people coming up to the barricades saying, hey, you know, we need to get to work. How are we going to get around? And so then I started realizing that even though we're in the rural area, there are people using the trail to commute. So yeah, we're seeing different types or different reasons why. I mean, health benefits, we've got commuting, and just recreation, leisure. So yeah, it's kind of all sorts of different reasons why people use the trail.
So are you tied into sort of a national organization or national groups really looking at all of the reasons people should bike and walk and skate?
Not really. We're tied in with the Rails to Trails Conservancy, but we are tied to the local advocates of biking. There's a group in Minneapolis called the Bike Alliance, and I see those groups as being the pushers of creating bike lanes in the cities, creating more trails. Another group would be the Parks and Trails Council of Minnesota. They help communities purchase land and create these bike trails. So I would say here in Minnesota, it's those groups that are helping the biking explosion, if you will.
Good. Well, I want to talk specifically about the Canon Valley Trail and how it got started and, you know, what it's like and what the kind of experiences you have. But first, we need to take a little break.
Okay.
We'll be back right after this message.
Everybody has a dream. Mine was to see the ocean. And with a little help, I made it.
Welcome back. We're talking about biking and walking and rollerblading on trails in Minnesota. Particularly, we're focusing on the Canon Valley Trail. And joining me is Scott Roepke, who is the executive director of the Canon Valley Trail, and Keith French, who's an avid user of the trail. Scott, I want to talk specifically about the Canon Valley Trail, since we're down here in Red Wing, very close. Tell me a little bit about the history of this trail.
The trail started back in 1986. Prior to 1986 and 1983, there was a railroad, an active railroad, running from Cannon Falls to Red Wing. And in '83, they abandoned the railroad. And a few people got together from Cannon Falls and Red Wing, and they decided this would be a great recreation trail. And so over the course of those 3 years, they worked on getting funding and the governments to agree to come together and support the trail. And yeah, in 1986, the trail began.
And was this part of the rails to trails conversion, and were there any issues with the railroad and getting the land, those kinds of things?
Actually, there were people involved with the railroad or worked for the railroad that helped this process go through. So as far as other trails in the state of Minnesota, I've heard it's a very complicated, long process, but this ended up being like where the stars were aligned, and everybody was in the right positions at the right time, and it moved along very quickly. And from '83 to '86, all of a sudden the trail was established. So it was an easy process.
Now, it goes through several communities. I mean, it starts at Cannon Falls, goes through Welch Ends and Red Wing, and you got the county, and you've got cities. Any issues with that?
Actually, you would think the more government involved, the more complicated it would get. The trail is run by a joint powers board, and it's the city
Which means?
It means the three governments that are involved are Cannon Falls, Red Wing, and Goodhue County. And the Joint Powers Board is made of 6 elected officials, and those are 2 from Cannon, 2 from Red Wing, and 2 from Goodhue County. And then we have 3 citizens from each unit of government that are appointed. And we meet once a month. It is surprisingly how well the governments work together in making decisions and financially supporting the trail. I've been with the trail 13 years, and the working with this board has been a pleasure.
Now, I mean, it's a paved trail, right? And so there's some resources that are needed. Does the funding come from the 3 governmental bodies?
The governments do support us, but our main funding source is a wheel pass. So from April 1st through November 1st, if you're using a wheeled device, we have a pass that you're to purchase if you're over the age of 18. Generally, in the last few years, we've generated about $115,000. That helps, and then the government support is about $70,000. So between those 2, we can operate. However, once in a while, we do need to look for other assistance. We have 18 different bridges on the trail. We've got 20 miles of asphalt, which is expensive. But at this point, operating-wise, we do a good job as far as.
Now, I suspect that you're along the trail is along the Cannon River, and which floods periodically. Has that been an issue in recent years with a lot of the flash flooding that we've had?
Yes, we've had actually 2 floods in the last 3 years, and the last flood, which was in last year, it caused the trail to be closed for about 6 weeks. We incurred about $100,000 in damages. So even though we're close to the river and it's a scenic view, that river does cause issues once in a while.
All right, so what kind of support do you actually get from the people in the cities along the way, Cannon Falls and Redmond? What kind of feedback do you get from those communities?
Well, first of all, one of the best supporters are the businesses in Cannon Falls and Red Wing, and even beyond that, in the Goodhue County area. The businesses appreciate the trail because of the economics it produces. But as far as citizens, I mean, the trail has become more and more popular, and when something is run very well, people want to jump on board. And so it's amazing when we're looking for certain pieces of equipment, there might be a donation. But other than that, other people want to volunteer and cut brush or mow areas, and others want to be involved in the natural resources as far as plants and trees. So yeah, there's lots of connections.
So a lot of volunteer activities.
Yes.
So what kind of business benefits do you have? I mean, a lot more tourists, renting bicycles, people eating at restaurants. What are the things that you see?
Exactly. And the worst case scenario is, let's say people bring a lunch and they don't eat out, or they've got their own bike. They normally have to stop for gas and for the ride home. And if they stop for gas, they're picking up a candy bar and a pop. So, I mean, even the smallest, things that people are purchasing are an economic value to the trail. So,
Oh, good. Well, I want to go into a little bit more about the value of the trail to the cities and the county, and also to the state, and also some of the benefits that individuals are seeing on an individual level. But first, we need to take another little break. We'll be back right after this message.
A full life, measured in seats, starts with the right ones early on. Car crashes are a leading killer of children 1 to 13. Learn how to prevent deaths and injuries by using the right car seat for your child's age and size.
Welcome back. We're talking with Scott Roepke, Executive Director of the Canon Valley Trail, and Keith French, a user of the trail. Keith, I want to come back to you as the start of this little segment, because we had talked about the benefits to the community, the business community. What do you see as a resident? You live in...
I live in Cannon Falls.
Okay, so what do you see as somebody, a resident of that?
Well, one of the things I see a benefit to our community is that it's given us a really nice farmer's market. What a lot of people do on Saturday and Sunday mornings is they go out to the parking lot by the trailhead in Cannon Falls, and they bring in all sorts of different crafts or food items, and it really makes a nice thing. And in the fall, when the corn starts happening, it's a great place to be. So people are taking corn home with them, and tomatoes and all kinds of things like that. Elk meat, they have elk meat. So that's yeah, the elk meat
I would
guys
not have
always
thought
there.
about that here.
Yeah, I know.
In Minnesota.
No. So I see that as a big thing. Is that it brings people in, not just that are going to use the trail, but people that are going to come in and add to the trail, add to the trail itself. Another thing that's really fun about it is oftentimes on Saturdays, Scott will hire a musician or something that will play in Welch, and so you can get a little culture or get some cookies from the Lions Club or the whatever, and that's always a really fun thing too. So there's a lot of benefits in that way of community building and using the trail.
Do you think differently of your community of Cannon Falls now that with the bike trail there than you would if it wasn't there?
I think it's got to be it's got to be the main draw of Cannon Falls for the summertime, especially. Every day you go by the parking lot, it's always full with people getting ready to do a ride, and you know, and it goes different groups of riders at different times of day. You know, early morning you'll see a lot of the road bike riders getting out there early, and you know, so maybe if you're leaving at 9 and coming back at 10, you'll start seeing the families go out. So you're seeing a lot of different kinds of people who are using the trail in different ways, and actually using the community in a lot of different ways. You know, a road biker might come back and want to carb up or something, and the families come back and they want to get some ice cream, you know, so it's a really nice thing.
You get a lot more visitors, people from other places to now visit with you because there's a bike.
Oh yeah, I'm always visiting with people. I talk to people, so you know, I always try to communicate with people. Even as I'm riding on the trail, I'll pass somebody and I'll say, hello, how are you? Good morning. And, you know, sometimes that starts a little conversation, you know, nice day, where are you from? And so, yeah, it's a great way to meet people and do that on the trail.
Okay. Steve, where do most of the users of the trail come from?
I would say during the week, it's kind of a community around the Cannon Falls, Red Wing, Goodhue County area. And then on the weekends, it's kind of a draw from Rochester and Minneapolis, St. Paul. We do have a guest book down at Welch, and it's really interesting. I collect all the pages and put them in a folder, and I'll flip through those at the end of the year, and you'll see from the upper Midwest, you know, the states, but then you'll start seeing, you know, people coming from California, from Florida that have signed that guest book. And then it even goes beyond that. All of a sudden you start seeing different countries. And it's really interesting to see that people are coming from all over the world to come down and use the Canon Valley Trail.
And you've been in as executive director for 13 years, so biking has really changed dramatically in that point. Have you seen the users change? As the demographic change? You said certainly people from a broader area, but are the kinds of people coming on using the trail different?
I would say what I've noticed in the past few years is that the ages, it seems like we're starting to see more people at the older ages. Like, it's not uncommon to see 50s, 60s, but there's 70s and 80s people out biking or inline skating. So I would say what I've seen is the increase in the older ages.
Now, trails have to be of a certain grade if they're rails trails, they're like 6% rise or something like that. Are these with people with disabilities or limited abilities, for motility? Are they accessible on this trail?
I believe we do not have over a 3% grade. Okay. However, in Cannon Falls, there's the city trail that connects into ours, which has a steeper than 3%. But for our trail is less than 3%. So, yeah, if you have a disability, it's not going to be an issue coming to the trail.
And you raised another issue that is important as I go around the state talking with trails is how do they connect with other trails? Because people love to ride on a trail, but when it ends, they like to be able to have the next step. You say you have a good connection, at least one. Other connections with other trails?
They're slowly taking place. Southeast Minnesota is starting to be, as someone said, the biking mecca of Minnesota. And the proposed connections, there's a huge amount of different trails that are proposed that will be connecting. In Red Wing, we currently connect to the Goodhue Pioneer Trail, which is not complete, but it's 4.5 miles out of Red Wing, so you can get onto that trail. On the other end, we're starting to work on the Milltowns Trail, which is going to head towards Northfield and Faribault. And part of that is beginning this summer. Is a trail is being built from Cannon Falls out to Lake Bilsby, which will be part of the Milltowns Trail. But they're also putting in a bridge. I believe the bridge is $1.2 million, and it's going to connect two county parks together, Goodhue County Park and Dakota County Park. So that is going to be the beginning of the Milltowns Trail that will lead towards Northfield and Faribault.
So how do these are major projects and major initiatives. Who's involved in that? From the state level to the local level?
Everybody.
So you need good collaboration.
Yes. We've Minnesota DOT, Minnesota DNR, Parks and Trails Council, City of Cannon Falls, the counties. It's just a huge number of organizations and people that have gotten together and have kind of pushed for this. So
It takes a whole village to develop a direct bike trail, doesn't
exactly.
it? Good. Well, Keith, the last 30 seconds that we've got, anything that you'd like to say about the Canon Valley Trail or biking in general?
Well, I think biking is a great activity for any age, and it's a great thing to do with your family. It's a great thing to do for yourself and your body, and your mind. I have a lot of good thoughts when I'm out riding on the trail. I can work through some things that maybe I need to think about. So
Good.
I think it's a great
Well,
activity.
you guys are two great spokespeople for the trail. Thank you for being with me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'll be back with a closing comment right after this message.
You know what, guys? There's a lot of tree branches and dry brush over here. We should probably move the bonfire over there.
I'm guessing Smokey liked that idea.
In the movie The Field of Dreams, the now classic line was heard, "If you build it, they will come." People came to the ball field that was created because of an innate connection between Americans and baseball, a connection that nourishes both the body and the spirit. The same thing is occurring in the world of people-powered movement, biking, skating, skiing, and simply walking. As paths and trails are built, people are coming, and they are coming in large numbers. They are coming because these activities, like baseball, have an innate connection to our being that nourishes both the body and the spirit. But they do much more. They enhance the environment. They reduce healthcare costs. They stabilize neighborhoods. They rejuvenate cities. They increase productivity. They attract businesses, and they build community. Policymakers are realizing that investing in projects that make biking, skating, and walking safer and more convenient is not just an investment that benefits individuals. It is an investment in a better society. It is an investment that benefits all of us. It is a public health investment that'll pay dividends now and far into the future. That's all for today. Thanks for watching. I hope you can join us again next time on A Public Health Journal.